What is up, slackers? Welcome to Book Cheats. Today we will be talking about 7 book report ideas for the book of Mice and Men. Numero uno. Alright, for my first idea, I was thinking that was it right or wrong that George shot his friend Lennie? Now, for all of these ideas, many of them are going to be very similar in their nature because for papers you have to kind of keep a certain structure to them. And in this one, for this one, on all my bullet points, they're going to be the theme of the particular paragraph. So for the first one, why George had to shoot Lennie. So in your first paragraph, you could describe what happened and what was George's motives behind shooting Lennie. And then the next paragraph, you could talk about why he could be justified in his actions. And then, of course, then take the opposite point of view, and you could talk about why it could be considered wrong. And then you could also, for the final body paragraph, you could talk about your opinion on the matter. Now, for all of these ideas, you need to put an introduction and a conclusion, which is separate from the ideas that I'm giving you. Now, let's go to the next idea. Number 2. Should euthanization of dangerous mentally challenged be legal? Alright, so for this one, in the first paragraph, you could have a summary of how and why Lennie was euthanized per se in the book. Now, obviously, if you remember, Lennie accidentally killed Curly's wife, and he was sort of a danger to society. And so what you could do is just write about basically the summary of why he had to be killed and why George did it, of course, similar to the last idea. And then you could talk about I was thinking that why it would be right to euthanize the mentally challenged who are dangerous, and also you could talk about why it would be considered wrong. And then, of course, for the fourth body paragraph, you could do your opinion on the matter. Number 3. This one, it was sort of mentioned in the book, and there was a lot of examples of this, but women being treated as property. Now, for this idea, you could describe how Curly's wife was treated from examples from the book. And then you could talk about, in the next paragraph, how women in general were treated around this time period. And then, of course, the progress in the next paragraph about how women are treated now. And then, of course, in the final paragraph, talk about things that cause the change in treatment. Or you could go and talk about what you are going to do to improve the treatment of women. Number 4. The segregation of black workers in the early 1900s. Now, for this idea, I was thinking that in the first paragraph, you could describe how Crooks was separated in the book. If you don't remember, he was the black stable buck. And you could use some examples about how he wasn't able to come into the bunkhouse and how he was treated quite different. And then your next paragraph, you could compare it with how blacks in general were treated around this time period. And then, of course, how black people are treated nowadays. And then for your final paragraph, you could write about things you can do to improve treatment and things that happened to improve the treatment of black individuals. Number 5. Alright, for this idea, I was thinking of things always seem to get in the way of our dreams. I don't know if it's happened to you, but I feel like a lot of times in our lives when we really, really want something, that there's so many obstacles that pop in our way And this would be a great idea for a paper because it's a very emotional subject. Now, to compare it to the book, you could describe how George and Lennie, they both had the dream of owning that ranch, and how their dreams were totally shattered by Lennie's actions. You could share a paragraph about obstacles that generally get in the way of people's accomplishing their goals. Now, there's a lot of obstacles that you could share. This is probably one of the easiest ideas of all the ideas I came up with. Next, you could talk about a personal experience of a time that you had a dream and you were faced with something, and whether you were able to sort of break through that, or if that sort of thing sort of ruined your dream. And then, of course, for the final paragraph, you could talk about advice to people of what they can do when your goals are faced with the mountains to climb. Like when obstacles come, what would you recommend that they do? And the sixth number, for this idea, I was thinking the treatment of the mentally challenged in the early 1900s. Now, this would be a great topic because it was dealt with a lot in the book, because Lennie was treated quite different and there wasn't really anything for him to receive the sort of support that he needed. Excuse me. Now, for the first paragraph, you could describe how Lennie was treated in the book and how mentally challenged people were treated in the early 1900s for the next paragraph. And then, of course, how they are treated today and how they have so many options to help them. And then, obviously, for the last option, your opinion on the progress of the improvements. And finally, number 7. How to settle an argument then and now. This idea, honestly, was one of my favorites because it's quite funny how things are different from then and now. Now, you could describe some conflicts that happened in the book and how they were settled. For example, when Curly struck Lennie and how Lennie was able to just beat the tar out of him and there was sort of no ramifications. And then, so for the second paragraph, you could describe the general argument settling forms in the past. And then, of course, for the next paragraph, how things are quite different now, how things often go to court, or just things are really, really different. People don't really slug things out too often anymore. And then finally, your opinion on which is way better. Alright, and that concludes the slideshow. I hope you really enjoyed the video. Please leave a like and subscribe. And of course, I hope this helps you with your book report. And if you thought this was a real English accent, leave a thumbs up. If you're from England and you realize how terrible this accent is, then rate me 1 out of 10. And I'll let you... I honestly would rate myself like a 3, but maybe I fooled some of you. And as always, slack on and have a nice day.